This is a quick video. I've already done one video in which I demonstrate the receiver mounted winch. I did that video in the Hoosier National Forest. My wife helped me with the iPhone. A lot of it is in vertical mode. It's not super high quality. So I figured I would do it again while I was out in Montana, partly because there was beautiful scenery. Now later in my trip out in the Little Belt Mountains, I actually needed to use it to remove some deadfall, so I included that footage here as well. Hopefully this video is of some interest. Again, I try to edit it around and show you a realistic view of the pros and cons. For example, it does take me quite a while to get the winch out of the back of my truck. It's because I don't intend to use it daily. And on those occasions when I really do need to use it, you can see I have to move around quite a bit of gear. It's even worse now since I put an 80-20 framework in the back of the truck that's not shown in these videos. But you get a general idea. I try to do realistic time frame of me kind of fumbling around, getting the winch out and set up and ready to use. Okay, I'm going to kind of walk over there, point a couple things out. So 2-inch receiver winch, so obviously I can pop it in the back, I can pop it in the front. I had to run the Anderson coupling cables. There's a nice high amperage breaker on the battery box, which I normally keep disconnected, so I had to pop the hood to use it. I normally keep that disconnected, figuring if it does get damaged, why let it pop? I guess the downside to that is if it ever did have a short, I wouldn't know it until I needed to use my winch. And over here on the right side, so you can see I've got the Hummer H3s have that barn door style. You can see the pintle hitch there. So I have my M416 trailer with a Luna ring, and when it's connected, it has a very short tongue, so you can't open that door very far. So the stuff over on the left side is something that I have to be able to get to through the door. On the right side is stuff I can pull out even with that little bit of an opening. So if I'm ever in my trailer or pulling my trailer and I need to access the winch, I set it up there on the passenger side so that even with the barn door swung only a short distance, I can still get the winch out. So again, I'm not selling anything. I want to give you a realistic view of what it's like to use my winch. You'll see I'm fumbling around the back of the truck for quite some time. That's because I have to undo a ratchet strap, lift a large ammo can that has my recovery gear in it off of a homemade shelf that sits on top of the receiver cradle, I should say. Then eventually you'll see me kind of pop out of there. I'll finally have gotten the receiver cradle fully released from all the other stuff that I store back there, and I'll lug it up to the front of the truck. So again, imagine if I'm stuck in 2 feet of mud or something. I do keep a pair of boots back there, but yeah, this would be a whole lot of not fun, especially if that front receiver were immersed in the mud. If I were ever in such a situation, I guess I would hope that I'd have sense to put the receiver on before I drove into the mud, but full disclosure here, definitely if I did wait, it would be a bit of a burden to get that winch installed in that front receiver. Now, the state where I live, Illinois, requires a display of a front license plate. So if you look at the front of the truck there, you'll see there's a 2-inch receiver license plate frame or license plate mount currently there. So you'll see me kind of walk around. I'll remove that, and then I slide the winch into place. I didn't keep close track of the time here, and again, I wasn't hurrying, but you can see it takes several minutes to complete the whole evolution. Now here in a moment, I'll finally emerge from the back of the truck. Notice it's a bit of an effort there for me, and that's because that receiver cradle with the winch mounted on it, even with synthetic line, memory serves, weighs a good 80 pounds. So that's not a light little thing that I'm lugging around to the front of the truck. So again, bear in mind, if you want to go with a setup like this, you probably need to put it in the front of the truck before you get into something muddy and nasty. You also see me fumbling around a bit there. There's a few steps to it. I have to take the R-clip out, get the hitch pin out, remove that front license plate holder. I'll slide the winch in, pin it in place, but then I also have to connect the large gauge cable to the Anderson couple coupler that's inside my grill. And again, that connects to a large breaker that's mounted by the battery. So once that's all set up, of course, then I have to unwind the winch, make sure I've got either my corded or cordless remote handy. And at that point, I can start the recovery. So right about here, you'll see me kind of wander back to the driver's door. It's because I have to pop the hood to reach over by the battery and reset the breaker, which I normally leave open, and then I'll make sure all the connections are complete. The other thing, again, is sort of just a real-time one-take thing. This is how long it actually took me, just kind of fumbling around there. I have to be careful with those gloves. They have like a little cinch to tighten them, and they hook on the slats in my grill when I try to reach through with my gloved hand. So you'll see it takes me a couple of tries. The Anderson couplings work very well. They block moisture very well. They stay clean, and they're pretty quick to connect and disconnect, despite my clumsiness observed in the video. I think at this point I'm digging around in the center console, trying to pull out both remotes, the corded and the cordless. Now inside that center console, I keep my limb risers, odds and ends. I've got quite a bit of stuff in there, so it does take me a while to shuffle it all around and grab what I'm looking for. Now that wasn't terribly long. And you'll see here I set the clutch to open. You can run this winch in either direction, but I just released the clutch and kind of pulled the line out here. I needed to re-spool the line anyway. If you run synthetic line, you'll know that if you ever do pinch or bind it, you'll know right away. Wherever there are pressure points on the synthetic line, you can see it kind of get a little bit flattened there. Definitely something to avoid. That's a 13,000 pound XBull winch. If I'm ever using the full 13,000 pounds, I really don't want to allow that to slide on the spool and generate heat or get pinched, because certainly that pushes this line, not to its tensile strength rating limit, but certainly it puts a fair deal of load on it. So all I do here is wind it up under light tension. Now the weight of my body leaning back really isn't the full tension you want when you rewind a winch. But when you're in the field, you do what you need to do. Now again, I just parked in a spot in a beautiful trail to do a little shakedown of the winch because I hadn't used it in a long time. So I wanted to spin the motor, test the remotes, etc. So around here I set down the cordless remote. I go grab the corded remote. Same idea, just give it a little test. Now, of course, to use the corded remote, the line has to be close enough to me that I can be within the range of the cord on the remote. That's why I did the cordless first. And that's all I'm doing here, is just verifying that everything works. Interestingly enough, and I'll include it in this video, I did actually end up needing to use the winch to clear some deadfall on this trip. So I'm glad I did the quick shakedown here. And of course, then I'll include the footage here toward the end of me actually using the winch to clear some deadfall. Okay, I'm going to do one last little tidbit of footage there. That shelf in the front is, so again, if you mess with your own gear, a lot of times you prototype with cheap material. I've got some T-slot aluminum coming. You see those 2x4s. I plop my fridge on top of that because I want to clear the 2-inch receiver of the receiver mounted winch. So it's all convoluted. Maybe I'll make a video of that, but that way I can actually set the fridge in there, and I'm going to put a bunch of eye bolts so I can secure everything so it won't flop around and become a missile if I ever flip or get rear-ended or hit something on the highway. Now, again, it's a prototype, so it's already, I broke it the other day. I just took a minute here with my little cheap Amazon roadside toolkit there to put it back together, and you can kind of see how I'm working there. I got to take up space with a heavy receiver winch. It'd either hang from the front of my truck or whatever, so the weight's still there. So I put that shelf snapped on top, and that's just household hardware. Those are the little things you use to hang a broom handle against a wall. So I just kind of fabbed it up in my garage when the muse inspired me. And once I'm done with the 80-20, I'll probably build a better shelf. But I thought that might be of interest. I'll actually leave the thing going here, and you can see me kind of walk over there, how I snap it in place. And then I've got an ammo can with a bunch of my recovery gear and all that stuff. So here you can see how long it takes me to grab that handmade shelf that I mentioned in that wind-enhanced narration. And then I've got to set the fairly heavy recovery gear can on top. Then I run a ratchet strap through there to secure it to the existing anchors in the back of my truck. Then I'll kind of walk back toward the camera and I'll explain a little bit more about what I was doing. And this is, again, just full disclosure. You can see that this isn't something that I've set up like a slide out fridge drawer or something. It takes me a fair bit of effort, but I'm much more of an overlander than I am a hardcore off-roader. So if I were on a trail where I expected to challenge my vehicle, I would just, hit the trail with the winch already on there. In a case like this where I'm just out exploring, I may or may not need the winch. This is how it goes. It takes me several minutes to get all the gear off the winch, hook the winch up, several minutes to put it all back. Okay, I'll go ahead and move the camera slightly and you can kind of see how I've got that ratchet strap and cargo net. I'd say the Hummer H3 is definitely an underappreciated overlanding vehicle. And this is the Alpha, so it comes with an LSV8, but those little anchors are factory, so it's kind of nice to have a set of factory anchor points. I'm not talking about the big sort of clevis there on the bumper. I'm talking about in the cargo area. So those are very securely fastened, and you can do a lot of cool stuff with those. Sorry for the off-camera thing here. This is a really... I'm almost certainly going to have to dub over all this because I don't... this is one of these amazing new iPhones that... My wife has a beautiful plug-in microphone with a windsock, which of course doesn't work with the new iPhones. Nevertheless, that was that. I'm just going to sit, relax, go over that nice hard copy map and look at Gaia, and I'll probably drive a couple more of these tracks and then head back to camp for lunch. So hopefully some of this footage finds its way into a video that people find useful. So again, hopefully you got a little sense of what I got going on in the cargo area, the CO2 tank for reinflation and all that stuff. Little by little it comes together. If you're new to overlanding, you'll realize it's never done. To me, I try to strike a balance between implementing a better idea. If you do too many, then every time you go out it's a shakedown and you're trying to figure things out again. I try to make a few changes and leave it mostly alone, enjoy camping, and then I upgrade kind of all at once, call it like Rev 8.0 or something, once I got some of the bugs worked out, and then take it out again. So again, hopefully some of this stuff is of interest, and we'll see where this forest roads take me next. I had to voice over because you couldn't quite hear my muttering. I quoted a French friend who taught me a nice proverb: if you have a weak mind, you must have strong legs. I said that as you see me somewhat inefficiently walking around the truck, grabbing things that I had forgotten to grab the first time. I probably shouldn't admit that I'm a Lean Six Sigma black belt whose primary job function many times in my career was to ensure we avoided transportation and motion waste and set things up in the most efficient manner. Once again, I find that I don't always practice what I preach. Nevertheless, it was pretty straightforward. Again, you can see it's not super efficient, but it's not something that takes me a terribly long time to get that winch popped on there when I do need it on a trail. Mostly struggling to find a halfway level spot to plop the tripod there. Now I probably, I don't have to do it right. I'll go grab a shackle and do the proper connection here and then through the hook. I don't do soft shackles for no particularly good reason. Bit so it doesn't trap itself in there. I asked the guy, why do I have that little red thing on my winch? He said, you're in the mud searching for the end of your line. I don't know. Alright, of course, main thing, stay clear. I'll do this from inside the truck with the cordless remote. set the clutch. I've had the, oh, there we go, that time it snapped. Sometimes I have to turn the motor slightly to get it to go back to engage. Okay, now I backed the truck up. Now this is the kind of tricky bit. If that snaps, that thing can come flying back. There's about 100 things to think about here in terms of staying out of the way and safe. But I'm going to go ahead and just try and apply a little bit, see if I can fracture that dead on there. I can either use my drivetrain or the winch. I'm going to tension it up with the winch a little bit here, see what it does. By little, it's kind of sliding that up out of the way. And that's what I was hoping for. It's just kind of cracking the top off. So I don't have a lot of load on the winch. And there you could hear it there. That's what I mostly want. I don't want that thing launching like a projectile back in my truck. Okay, so I'm just going to back up a little bit because I think I have successfully snapped the log. Yep, there we go. All right, experts might tell me I was stupid that could have launched at me, but I feel like that was a fairly safe way to get that top end snapped off and the whole thing out of the way, given that the proper method actually would have been to have an axe or a saw. All right, the rest I can do by hand. I suppose I should add that had I packed my axe or my chainsaw like I had originally planned to do, I wouldn't have needed to pull that deadfall. But hopefully this video is helpful to anyone considering using a receiver mounted winch.